Peter Capaldi.
Right, yeah.
That doesn't sound Scottish to me, guys. Let me be honest with you.
Yeah, he's Scottish.
In the same way Italians moved to the United States, they moved to Scotland, you know.
That's not how it works, Rick. America is a melting pot. So if you're going to leave your country of origin, you can only go to America.
Right. You're supposed to leave Scotland, not come from Italy and go to Scotland. You're supposed to leave Italy and go to America.
Yeah, you can't go from Italy to Scotland. Scotland's where Scottish people live. Everybody from all the other countries came here, but they don't go to other countries. That wouldn't make sense.
One of the greatest Scottish racing car drivers is Dario Franchitti. And if you see him talk, it's just the Scottish guy talking. So
no, I think you mean to say is
you're wrong,
all
Chris.
the best race car drivers are Italian. Have you ever heard of a Ferrari?
Started in Glasgow.
Not made in Scotland.
Look it up. It started in Glasgow.
I watched Ford versus Ferrari, and so now I hate Italians.
Wow. Season's greetings from the hosts of Lost and Found and Rewound. Welcome to a very special Rewind, where we will discuss the 1989 Jim Jarmusch indie classic Mystery Train. I'm Chris Lost.
I'm Found Jim.
I'm Rick Rewound.
We have a very special guest with us today, but before we get to our guest, we do have our presidential segment to do, titled An Update on the Turkey. President Donald Trump did pardon the turkey this year, much to Rick's dismay. If you'll remember, Rick wanted the turkey beheaded.
On television.
On television. But wanted a public beheading by the president. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Anyway, on to our guest. He's a painter, a writer, a film director, and a podcaster. He's fucking funny as all get out, and like Jim, has a magical soul. He's the only person to witness me nearly getting booted from Alamo Drafthouse. He's my fantasy football nemesis. He's W. Dave Lost. Welcome, Dave, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of the show, guys. Listen,
are you clapping for yourself?
I was trying to make a bigger noise for me. I'm a big fan of the show. Listen every other week or whenever the show drops. I drop everything.
Truly
and listen to the show.
Spoken as truly a devoted fan.
Yeah, so you know he listens because he's confused by it.
And I have no idea what the numbering means either. So being a huge fan, and I still don't understand the numbering. And you guys don't understand it. Only Chris understands the numbering of the show. I mean, I do a podcast about tacos. If there's one thing that I love more than just talking about tacos and eating tacos, it's talking about cinema and movies about trains. So this is the place to be.
Have you seen Runaway Train, Dave?
You know what? I haven't seen any of the movies that you guys have reviewed on the show.
But you listen to the show?
I can't find them anywhere. You know how hard it is to find the movies on your guys' list?
Well, go to your video store.
Oh, yeah. I could go down to the local video store. You're right. Sorry.
All available on VHS. Mm-hmm. You got a beta.
Now I just got to find a VHS player.
Yeah, you've got a beta. That's the problem.
You introduced yourself to Jim and Rick when you came on to the meeting here. Have you not met them before? Do you all not know one another?
I don't think so. I stood right next to Rick at the Lotus Pool anniversary party a couple years back, and I almost said hi, but then I got nervous and didn't want to bug him. Then he got up on stage and performed with you, and I was like, oh man, what a performance when you guys played. What was the song you did together?
Wasp.
Yeah. And I took a bunch of pictures of that performance if you need them, which was an amazing performance. But I don't know if we met. I don't know if I ever got the courage to say hello.
Yeah, I have that effect on people. They.
And then I heard on the show a couple weeks ago about you not wanting to, or something about not wanting to talk to people at shows because people tell you stuff about your favorite songs or albums, and it really bums you out because those aren't your favorite songs and albums.
But that's just normal. Yeah, that comes with the territory. No, I don't mind talking to people as long as it's not about me.
I should have said hello.
You should have.
Well, I think Rick doesn't realize that he's intimidating. I think Rick thinks that people are trying to shun him when in reality they're just afraid to talk to him.
Well, I explained this to my son recently, is that I have had numerous occasions where one of the low points, high points, just a moment in my life where I sat talking to someone outside of CBGB's, and they were talking about how awful my band was. While I was standing out there, they thought another band that was inside was my band. And this was a person whose house I had stayed at on tour, slept on their floor. And then, I've had situations where I walk off stage and people don't know I was. Are you the T-shirt guy? Yeah, I'm the T-shirt guy. And not in a joking way. That's what I would say that to somebody who just came off the stage after playing, right?
Or they say, "Where's Jim?"
Yeah, Jim's got it worse. People talk to Jim because they think that he's me.
Right.
It's like something about me. I don't know what it is.
No, when you popped up on the feed, I thought you were Rick. You guys look a lot alike.
They almost look related.
Yeah.
So Rick's actually, I think his quote was, when we were asking about compliments, and when Rick said he gets compliments, he's like, but they're always wrong or something like that. So, but in this case, the insults were wrong, right? This guy was insulting your band. He was wrong. It's a good band. This guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah, no, I don't mind compliments. I just don't like compliments that I don't agree with. So compliments are fine.
Compliments are for the giver, not the receiver. That's the only thing you have to remember. It's for the person giving the compliment, not the person who gets the compliment. Rick and Jim were playing a show at Doug Furs in Portland, Oregon.
Doug Fur.
Doug Furs.
Doug Fur.
Doug
No
Fur.
S.
No possessive.
I think.
Okay, Doug Fur in Portland, Oregon.
Doug Fur Lounge, yeah.
The Doug Fur Lounge. The night that a music video that Dave and I wrote and produced won Best Music Video at the Portland Comedy Film Festival just across town.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Wow.
And that's why you guys didn't come to the show, right?
Well, we didn't come to the show because we were in Kansas City, but we did send emissaries. We sent the director of the video, and we sent her husband.
I've never been to Portland. I really wanted to go to that. I think I might have been in LA at the time. Not to humble brag, but we had a lot of festivals we had to hit it like on the same weekend.
Well, I got to see Rick and Jim play at the Doug Fur Lounge later.
So was that one? Okay, so that was the show where we didn't have an opening act, right? Because nobody wanted to open for us. And so we played. It was a great show, but we played like everything we knew. Is that correct?
It was great. Yeah, it was awesome.
So you see, even that I can turn into something negative, which is like,
you did.
Nobody wanted to open for the show. Oh, no, we don't have an opening band. You guys just play. Okay, great.
Look, so I played a band, and while we can get people to open for us, we can't get people to come and watch us play. So I would rather have people come and watch us play. I remember you playing to a nearly full room with no opening band. I'd prefer that to an empty room with 3 bands, which is what I usually play in. Dave, we have a segment on the show called Hot Seat.
Is this a new segment?
No, we've had
you
this
listen to the
segment
show.
for years. I thought you were a fan. You keep saying you're a fan.
Does this
but
have like a cool like opening like sounder like when the segment starts?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's not like any of us on the show do anything with music that we can just make music and use it in the show. I mean, we made the theme song, and then Jim made the loop that we use for the end of the show. What else do you want out of us?
Sorry, I got this one confused with my podcast, which has all these different segments and like fun, like goofy intros and.
Well, we'll give you a chance to plug your podcast, a little bit there, Dave.
Right.
The Hot Seat is not about you asking us questions, about us asking you questions. So here we go. Dave, you are a filmmaker. I've edited several of your films. Who is the best film editor you've ever worked with?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one.
Thelma Schumacher does not count.
You have to have worked with her.
Marsha Lucas.
Is it Rodrigo Hornblower or something? Who's the Beastie Boys?
Horatio
Hornblower. Hornblower, yeah.
Is that it?
We'll go with that. Next question.
Well, Chris, I would have to say, since you are the only one that I allow to edit my films, I would say that you are.
Oh, that's very nice of you, Dave. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that I work for free and have the equipment.
Right. Well, no.
And that you have to constantly re-edit the films.
And sometimes I bring my footage to other editors, and they say I'm not going to edit this piece of crap. So I have to come back to you.
You've listened to this podcast, Dave, where you, your best friend Michael, and my son have been our only guests. Who's the best guest we've ever had on the show?
Gosh. This really is a hot seat. I'm going to go with Thomas.
All right, that's a good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
That was a great little couple sentences he said.
Dave, you lost a lot of weight about a year ago. I recently lost a lot of weight.
Oh, that's where I got all mine, right? I gained both of your guys' weight. That's great to know.
Took
where
it all
came
back.
from.
I gained it all back in the current global event. So
Look, you all look attractive. I wouldn't do a podcast with people who aren't attractive. Do you think people consider me nearly as attractive as you now, Dave? And how about the coked up bartender at Harry's Pub?
I think you've always been the most attractive out of all of the people in our circle.
Of all the editors that
Of all the editors. The bartender at Harry's, wow, you triggered something there with him.
Do you want to tell that story, Dave? Do you want to tell these guys what
I'll
the
just say
bartender
that he was making really, really bad jokes, and Chris was not going to stand for it, and he almost destroyed the man's face. He told the bartender to take a walk out of his own bar out into the street, or else something was going to happen. Instead of Chris going and cooling off in the street, he told the bartender to go cool off in the street. So
I told him I needed 30 seconds. So I told him to take a walk.
Classic alpha male. Good job, man.
Well, I wasn't being, he was the one who said I was ugly.
oh yeah,
He
that's
said
what it was.
He was taking a picture with me, Dave, and Michael and said, "You shouldn't be in this picture. You're not good looking enough to be in this picture."
What the hell?
And then he was trying to upsell Chris on some whiskey. And Chris was like, he was not having it. That guy, we've never been back to that bar ever since that night.
Scared of him?
I am a little scared to go in there and see him because I made such an ass of myself being so pissed off at him. But, I didn't hit him or anything. I was just angry.
It was like a Tuesday night, too.
He called me He called me ugly, and I just told him to take a walk. It was, I needed some space. I was insulted. Just like you, Rick, when that guy insulted your band what did you say to him? Hey, dude, I need you to take a walk.
Just nodded my head.
You were like, never going to sleep on that guy's floor again.
No. So,
Listen here, buddy. If you think I'm sleeping on your floor again,
you think I'm going to take your charity ever again?
Got another thing coming. Okay, last question, Dave. You asked me to write a Christmas song for the upcoming episode of your podcast, Taco the Town. Then you told me I am one of the many people you asked to write songs for the show. My question is, who do you take me for?
Well, you're going to be the last song. There's going to be this build-up. So you are the final. You're the final act.
So there's opening acts.
Right.
People have agreed to open for me.
Well, yeah. Who knows what I might get before the show. I've asked a lot of people for songs. I've only gotten 3 so far, and I haven't heard yours yet. So I hope it's a good one.
So it may not make the cut. Well, I've been working hard on it.
I've got a question. What do you feel is the superior podcasting microphone?
What are these, Chris?
that's an SM58, like the guys said.
A Beta
58.
58A? Sure, yeah. This one's been doing great for 3 years now.
Yeah. And it's what most of our guests have used on this program.
Good.
Most of the hosts use too.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I wanted to move my mic up to look just like your guys' mic.
Yeah.
In the little camera here, so we could all match.
I've told you before, I made the investment in purchasing this microphone. If I don't use it, it makes me feel even worse, right? I've got to get some use. I'm not trying to be showy. I'm not trying to be an iconoclast. I'm just trying to justify the fact that I should not have bought this stupid fucking microphone. And now I can say, well, I use it on my podcast.
It's perfect for a podcast where we're going to be talking about Elvis.
Good segue. Talk about Jim Jarmusch.
Are we going with Jarmusch or are we going with Jarmusch?
You tell me, because
What do you guys
the one thing I discovered last Tuesday, and I'm a hipster cinephile who grew up in the 80s and 90s, renting movies, watching them, obscure films, common films. As I looked at Jim Jarmusch's IMDb or pulled it up the other day, I thought, I can't wait to see how many of these films I've seen. And I'm like, I know I've seen Blue in the Face. I know I've seen Smoke. Of course, neither of those are Jim Jarmusch films. He's in them. So then I looked at the list and I went from his first film up and kept looking up and up and up and up and up and realized I'd only seen 2 Jim Jarmusch films. One was Gimme Danger, the Stooges documentary, and 2 was The Dead Don't Die, his most recent zombie movie. Prior to last Tuesday, I had not seen any other Jarmusch films, but then I have now since seen every narrative feature of his.
Did you watch the
crammed them
Neil?
all.
You didn't watch the Neil Young documentary?
No, I didn't have time. I watched how many films? Permanent Vacation, Stranger Than Paradise, Down by Law, Mystery Train, Night on Earth, Dead Man, Ghost Dog, Coffee and Cigarettes, Broken Flowers, Limits of Control, Only Lovers Left Alive, Patterson, and then I had seen the other 2.
Do you have a favorite?
Patterson.
Who's in it?
Darth Vader. What's his name?
James Earl Jones.
No, the new Darth.
David Prowse just passed away. Rest in peace.
Peter Capaldi.
The good-looking Darth Vader.
Oh, Anakin Skywalker.
Oh, well, he is good.
Hayden Christensen.
How many Darth Vaders? We've hit them all. Oh, you mean Jake Lloyd, the little boy from Phantom Menace? Is it a young, new actor? Is this a newer movie?
It's his second to last feature. The guy from Girls.
Adam Driver.
Driver. Okay.
You mean Kylo Ren, not Darth Vader.
Sorry, Kylo Ren. I loved it. Oh, it was so good.
Better than Mystery Train?
It was better than Mystery Train, but not by much.
I'm gonna have to see Patterson, I guess.
Dead Man. I haven't watched it again, but I always liked Dead Man.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
Which starts with him on a train,
Yeah.
just like Mystery Train.
The thing I learned about Jim Jarmusch is that every one of his films is awesome. Where is there a director where every film they do is great?
It's because he's not human. He's a vampire. I'm pretty convinced because about 9 months ago, I saw him in person at the Art Institute in Chicago. He did a little gallery talk. It was probably in February, maybe. And it's just a little gallery, and I was about 10 feet away from him. And he's dressed exactly the same how he's dressed for 30 years. And he looks exactly the same. It's crazy. He looks like he looked 30 years ago.
He had the
It's really-
prematurely gray hair. That helps, right?
But still, it's just it's kind of creepy. It's just because he dresses the same, I guess, and his hair is the same, but his face doesn't look any older, really. I mean, a little bit, but it's strange.
Dave, you mentioned a Jarmuschism, which is transportation. I made a list since I watched all these Jarmusch films. Am I saying it wrong? Is it Jarmusch or Jarmusch?
I always heard it as Jarmusch, and then that time that John Lurie was at the Art Institute talking about Fishing with John, somebody asked a question about Jim Jarmusch, and John Lurie went, Jarmusch now he's Jarmusch. So I have a feeling that it's Jarmusch, or was until he became an auteur.
Like all the different ways people pronounce Martin Scorsese or whatever it is. Yeah.
I finally got Coppola right because I watched Apocalypse Now again in his intro, and he said his own name, I think.
But in Italian, it should be Coppola. right? It's always the second to last syllable. You know, hey, I took Italian in high school, so I should know. And it's unless there's an accent mark, it's always the second to last syllable is the stress. So it should be Coppola. I've never heard anybody say Coppola, so I don't know. Did he say it that way?
No, he did not.
For a
Say
while,
Coppola.
people were
Coppola.
saying Coppola. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I said Coppola.
And so clearly an Italian name. Where did he move? Not Scotland. In Jarmusch films, Jarmusch films. People speaking in their native languages, musicians as actors, endings with the leads taking different routes, which might be the visualization of the note in Permanent Vacation, where the lead says we're all alone. Smoking, mostly cigarettes, fire implements such as matches and lighters, segments, one-way streets, traveling companions that bail on one another, a convention he uses quite often to cause tension, beautifully run down rooms and hallways, and then rich colors, black and white.
I'm realizing that Robbie Mueller, the cinematographer, those, if you've seen Paris, Texas, too, you realize how much of what you're talking about, colors and even the black and white, is Robbie Mueller.
Yeah.
Because I'm cinematographer obsessed now, apparently, and so I've stopped caring about directors, and now I just want to know about cinematographers, and I definitely see a through line in a lot of his work.
What are the Wim Wenders movies, right? That's what Before and
Nick Cave,
Wings of Desire.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I don't
must
know
have
if he
done that,
did.
yeah.
Maybe I was looking him up again. Yeah, when I was
Had he died already?
actually, I don't know. I don't think he did do that. Maybe he must have though. But he did the earlier ones, I
Right.
think, and he did Repo Man. I didn't.
That's
know that.
right.
Looked at-
Repo Man's a it's got the colors
Movie.
too. Yeah.
Is it To Live and Die in L.A.?
Oh,
he did that.
I didn't know
must
that.
have been-
You were talking about rundown hallways. I mean, just the way he captures like the bleak city streets, and it's always a rundown area of town, wide shots, just capturing all the ugliness of parts of American cities, and it's beautiful. I love just the pace of his movies too. There's no rush. It just takes its time. You're following people walking around, following people driving around, and you don't feel bored. I just love that about his films. And when like the scene in Mystery Train where you just follow everyone around Memphis, just walking by those old rundown, like the Stax records, the Lamar Theater, and all those empty lots. And they were saying that was like at a time when Memphis was run down. Like he was capturing Memphis as Memphis was in 1988. He was down in a pretty rundown part of town too. I guess they tore that hotel down like the next year because it was falling apart. It was torn down the very next year after they shot there. Like even in Down by Law where he has that shot of the New Orleans street with that big painting on the side of the building when he's picking up his stuff in the street. Just the way he shoots rundown buildings really, like as a kid seeing this movie for the first time, just really inspired me to go out and find rundown buildings and start doing photography of rundown old theaters and parts of town. I think as a kid seeing that, something I'd never really thought of as art before or as beautiful, and just in those movies, that's what I love about his films.
The two of you should subscribe to Dave's Instagram. What is your Instagram handle? Is it public, Dave?
Yeah, it's W. Dave Keith.
Dave's pictures of old buildings and old signs and everything. Rick, you'd love it the way you love like the way that stuff is replicated and accurately in certain movies. This is the real deal. I'm amazed at all the stuff that still exists that probably should be gone by now that you can still get pictures of. It's gorgeous stuff. And Jim, I think you'd like it too, just as a photog yourself.
What I loved about the movie, watching Mystery Train again, is also realizing how a lot of that is lost, though, too. There's still some of it left, but like I remember the world looking like that. And I was in Memphis 2 or 3 years ago and ate at the restaurant, that Tom Lehman.
Cool, the arcade.
Yeah, the arcade. So the restaurant, that was kind of tied to the hotel. That whole neighborhood looks completely different now. It's
Really?
it's very it's very gentrified, right?
It's all fixed up. That's
and so you have
kinda
that old
disappointing.
restaurant in there, but it's been all upgraded and the sidewalks look beautiful and the whole neighborhood looks really, really nice. And that's something you had when you were on tour, because you always, when you play shows in a band, you always play in the worst neighborhoods in a town, right? It made me nostalgic for that. It really made me realize, wow, how much things have changed.
Yeah, like in being on tour, like you said, in the South especially, was like that. Like, I don't know if we played I know we played in Memphis, but I'm trying to think if I'm combining it with maybe it was Knoxville or something, but I seem to remember wandering around really early on in one of our first tours. And like you said, the shots, the establishing shots, walking down the street, like you're in a car driving alongside the sidewalk. I remember, I think we played in Memphis or Knoxville, but I think it was Memphis, and the street looked just like that. You know, it was just a few years later, obviously, but it was the same, just kind of rundown area, like Lafayette, Louisiana, and places like that. We played at these incredible, like one place was like an old feed store, like in kind of right in the downtown Lafayette area, but it was just all these little tiny shacks, basically, people living in, you know, just classic Southern, 105 degrees and humid, and everyone's sitting out on their porches in these little shacks, and we played in this tin shed basically just a few blocks from downtown, and it was all these little neighborhoods like that. Or it was another neighborhood we played at, a weird cool little club, would fit perfectly with the neighborhood in Mystery Train. It was that same kind of, didn't seem dangerous, you know, it was run down and poor, but it wasn't dangerous, you know. It was just kind of the sleepy southern little neighborhood.
One of the things, you know, I'd listed all those Jarmusch isms. One of them is rundown neighborhoods in various cities. Because I at first thought, oh, this guy's a New York filmmaker, I'm going to be watching New York films like Woody Allen or something. But then I was like, wow, this guy can pull off that sort of romanticism with the rundown neighborhoods in a bunch of different cities that he's clearly not from.
He's definitely worldly. He hangs out with cool people all over the world. It's very early on. It's like he'd put all these actors from different countries, maybe didn't speak English, or, you know, in his movies, and made friends, obviously, in all these places. That's another distinctive thing about his movies, they're all very worldly.
I think when I first saw Mystery Train, it had to be in 6th grade, just flipping channels on cable, and it was back when Bravo actually showed movies. It was like a cable channel that showed indie films. Before all this crap it shows now, all these reality shows, it was an indie film channel. I remember I was on the first vignette with the Japanese teenagers, and I was like, is this a foreign film? Because I'd never seen a foreign film before. And then the next segment has the Italian lady in it too. I was all new to this, and I was like, I got to watch this movie. I kind of came in halfway, and I didn't know the name of the movie. I think for about five years, I thought the name of the movie was Last Train to Memphis. I don't know where I got that in my head, because it doesn't say. I could never find it in the cable guide or on the TV guide of what that movie was, because back then you didn't know what you were watching. You know, you were just flipping channels, and you'd have to do some research maybe at the library to find out what the name of that movie was that was on TV last night. But yeah, I thought it was a foreign film, and I loved it. I just loved the way he incorporates that into all his movies. And I think he said that he'd never been to Memphis before he wrote that movie. He just took a train there, started walking around, and just started writing the movie. And I think he did the same thing with Down by Law. He'd never been to New Orleans before, and he just started writing it with his first time there.
Kansas City. Food-wise, a city famous for its barbecue, but that's about to change. My name is W. Dave Keith, host of the podcast Taco the Town, and I believe that Kansas City is one of the most underrated, underappreciated, up-and-coming taco towns in the USA. On Taco the Town, we will shine a light on all the amazing tacos Kansas City has to offer. Kansas City is a great taco town filled with a variety of untapped taco stylings and flavors, and on the Taco the Town podcast, we won't stop until we've tasted every taco in the town. No taco table will go unturned. Each episode, we review a new taco joint with a special guest. We share taco memories, discuss taco topics, and put tacos to the test. We check the latest stories in taco news, and no taco is off the table on Taco the Town. If you love tacos, like I do, you're gonna love Taco the Town. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and Google Play. That's Taco the Town.
Sometimes when I get down on films on this show, a lot of what I criticize is the writing. I think if the writing of a movie is bad, it turns me off, or if it seems contrived. A couple observations. One is he writes all his films. I think that's why they are so good. And, you know, Rick, you're always talking about the auteur and how they have complete control. I think the fact that he has complete control of the film through his writing, and he's such a great writer, is why his films are so good. And Dave to compliment a point you made. I wrote this down when I was very tired. It's kind of pretentious, but this was an observation I made about Patterson. To Jarmusch, everyday moments aren't mundane. They are beautiful if captured accurately. And Jarmusch has a tremendous respect for the individually important soul of every living being. He doesn't need conflict to honor how profound we all are always. I remember being a real narcissistic, or maybe I still am, narcissistic human being and thinking, hey, does everybody have a consciousness and a life like me? Like every human being has their whole story, their family and their backstory and their thoughts and it was like I was obviously a younger person when I was thinking of this, but truly a narcissistic thought. Like, why wouldn't everybody have that? Jarmusch, it seems like he completely understands that. And every one of his characters, even if they're just like laying in bed doing nothing, is doing something incredibly interesting and compelling because I think he's honoring that. Whereas bad writing, bad filmmaking, it's boring when somebody lays in bed because the writer or the actor or the director doesn't know how to convey the importance of every moment of every person's life. This isn't making sense, is it?
No, it does. I've actually... People have said that about his movies, is that it's very similar to what you're saying. I think you're onto something there. The thing that he does is he writes movies for specific actors. He doesn't write the movie and then go cast it. He said he goes in knowing that this actor is going to play this role. He writes for specific actors instead of doing casting sessions. I think he said he's only done one casting session ever. He just knows who he wants in his movies, and he has a great eye for picking out actors that visually fun and entertaining and also great actors that are so natural. Like, that's the thing about his dialogue too in all of his movies. It's so natural. It's not forced. That people don't have these big monologues, fake monologues like that are in some indie films. It's just all natural, and I just love that about his movies. It's like how people really talk, and they're not acting. Like, there's some actors, like, what is it? His very first movie, the Stranger Than Paradise.
Permanent Vacation is the first one. Stranger Than Paradise is the second one.
Yeah. The actors in that's not like, you're not watching actors. It's like a documentary almost,
Back to my point about using musicians as actors. Clearly he hangs out with a bunch of musicians like, no, come be in my movie, right? And they're not bad. They're good. Like, even if they're not good actors, they're compelling to look at. The things they say sound natural. It doesn't feel like John Waters' movie where when he puts bad actors in the movie, they're clearly bad actors. I mean, these are all really good people, and they're not actors.
Joe Strummer is great in Mystery Train. He plays the best, like that whole segment. I mean, those three guys together, that's some of the best drunk acting I've ever seen. Maybe they really were drunk. And then Screamin' Jay Hawkins as the clerk, the hotel clerk. He went and I guess he used his song in Stranger Than Paradise, right?
Yeah.
And then he knew he wanted to use him in this movie, and I guess he found him living in some trailer, and he had no money, and he said, I really want you to be in this movie. He paid him some money for using the song, and then he paid him for this movie. And I guess Screamin' Jay Hawkins always wanted to bring his skeleton, the Henry the Skeleton, to the set every day. And he said, no, Jay, he doesn't need to come to set. He's like, are you sure? I think I should bring him, because he has that skeleton head he has on stage with him. But he was great. He was hilarious. Those two guys were hilarious. And I didn't know Spike Lee had a brother and sisters. That's Spike Lee's brother.
Yeah. And his sister has been in stuff too.
Yeah.
Tom Waits is the radio DJ. Did you see that? He's the radio DJ in Mystery Train. He plays the same guy that he was in Down by Law.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Because he does that little spiel in the prison cell where he tells them, I'm a DJ. And if you listen, it's the same exact guy, yeah.
Oh, I kind of got thrown off when he started doing films with real actors. I think it was like Broken Flowers. That was probably my least favorite film of his.
And it was all the actors. I was like, Jesus.
That's where I kind of lost him. I remember watching Broken Flowers, and then I don't think I ever watched another, except for the Stooges documentary, but I don't think I've watched anything more recent than Broken Flowers.
Yeah, I made a note that Bill Murray was way better in the 5 minutes he's in The Limits of Control than he was in Broken Flowers. I didn't get him in Broken Flowers. He didn't nail that part that well. I didn't believe it.
Yes.
Ghost Dog was good. That was
that's a real actor right there.
I always like that. That's definitely.
What was his most successful Hollywood movie? Was it Ghost Dog or was it Broken Flowers?
Yeah,
I think Broken Flowers made the most amount of money. I was looking that up. Ghost Dog, interestingly enough, had Henry Silva in it from Sharky's Machine and Cannonball Run 2.
Was he one of the gangsters?
Yeah.
He was. And actually, Ghost Dog, I wrote, flies in the face of my Jarmusch assessment with its litany of stereotypical Italians. Like, that was the thing. I didn't see Jarmusch playing to stereotype at all in his films. But that one, he did a lot.
Do you guys have a favorite segment from Mystery Train?
The Japanese kids is the most, that's what I always think about. It's right, the start of it, and it's very sweet. I love the three of them at Steve Buscemi at the end, and especially, can't remember his name, who I guess he died pretty young, Will Robinson.
Yeah.
Rick Aviles, or...
He was a stand-up, wasn't he? I remember his voice a lot from movies back
Yeah.
then. Like, he had that distinct voice.
Yeah, and he was great in that scene when they get, by the end, when they're just, with the whole thing with them ranting about Lost in Space. Yeah, that's a great part. And
Rick Aviles had a short career that ended with Waterworld and the MTV movie Joe's Apartment. And also he was on Equalizer, the show Equalizer, with our friend from Wicker Man. And he was also in the Cannonball Run.
That's what I remember him from. He was in Cannonball Run. He was he with Terry Bradshaw? Oh man, he was like one of the mechanics. Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I just remembered when I was looking at my notes about brothers and sisters, also Lorraine Bracco's sister is the Joe Strummer's ex-wife,
Dee
and
Dee.
the talker. Yeah, Dee Dee.
Buscemi's sister, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
I think this is very peak Buscemi in this movie. I mean, that's when I think this is right when he was at his best. I think this is my favorite role of his.
And I feel like this is the movie where I first saw him. I know he did some stuff before that, but this is the movie where it was like, oh, who is this guy kind of thing. Out of all the people in the movie, to think that he's the one who's the most... it came out because my kid came in and was like, "Is that Steve Buscemi?" And like an 11-year-old knows who Steve Buscemi is, right? And the fact that he is such a weird. I think he made that Jarmusch jump, right? So he jumped from being that weird character, like John Lurie or Richard Edson, that's just kind of this odd New York guy that doesn't
who
look
was
like
in Sonic Youth.
right. Richard
was
Edson,
the original drummer of Sonic Youth, right?
Yeah,
The other guy in Stranger Than Paradise.
Yeah.
He's the first drummer.
and who's in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Is one of the
driving the Ferrari.
Yeah.
The fake Ferrari.
Yep.
yeah.
Jim Jarmusch has a band, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Something
That's
Rabbits.
When I saw him talk at the Art Institute, it was the night before they had played, and actually, they started having shows in the fancy Art Institute of Chicago, and in like the trading room. The year before was like Thurston Moore and Kim Gordon. They each played separate shows. It's definitely they're getting all the cool New Yorkers to play. And
That's the thing is he came out of that really important era in New York,
Yeah.
and so the kind of no wave, all the crossover there. So Basquiat, was in bands. I can't remember what band he was in with, and then you got like Ann Magnuson and all those people, Lydia Lunch. They all kind of crossed over. It was just this kind of mix of musicians and filmmakers and artists, and the lines were super blurred. He's definitely of a scene that's not just film. I think he's part of a art movement, really. That kind of no wave art movement.
yeah,
One of my favorite reviews of Dead Man, which was like, it's boring and everything like that, and the soundtrack is Neil Young dropping his guitar for 2 hours. I was like, yeah, that's great. It's a great soundtrack.
I have that LP. I've got the soundtrack record. It's a double LP of him dropping his guitar. It's great.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you guys, as musicians, have you ever recorded or wanted to record at Sun Studios?
We played at a club right down the street, and I remember just walking by it. And we never.
Our first drummer, before Jim was in the band, really wanted to do that. And I think this was before they had a package deal or anything like that. It was like, my dad knows a guy who we can record at Sun Studios. So I was like, yeah, that'd be cool, but we'd have to drive to Memphis in 1988. When this movie, it probably would have been a great idea. We probably would have been in the movie. But
I love that scene with the tour guide that's just running through everything so fast. Like that's exactly how they talk when they do those tours. Have any of you guys been to Graceland before in Memphis?
No. Yeah.
So as
I
I
went
said,
as a child.
no,
but I
yeah,
hadn't
and
been back.
I went there. Yeah, I went there a few years ago, and we did not go to Sun Studio, and we did not go to Graceland. We went to the Civil Rights Museum and everything like that. We did the
Lorraine Hotel.
yeah, and we did all that stuff. But I realized we did not feed my inner nerd at all going there.
I have been to Graceland, and the two things that stuck out to me were the firing range Graceland is a very small
It's
home.
tiny,
I mean,
yeah. And the city's
yeah.
grown up around it, so it's like this tiny. I mean, you're thinking mansion, and it's a tiny house because it was a big house in 1955. You know, it's not a big house anymore.
And he had a racquetball court built off the back of the house, it's an outbuilding.
I love that
behind the house.
racquetball court.
It's the coolest racquetball court in the world. So that actually, there's three features: the racquetball court with this huge, like satin couch with a full bar, so you can see Elvis like getting a drink, sitting on the satin couch, and just watching people play racquetball.
Well, I think he
kids-
died right after playing racquetball. So that's what always freaked me out when I was there. I was like, oh man, he played racquetball and died.
Kids these days don't understand racquetball. That was like when it just appeared on the scene. Like I can totally imagine Elvis, I need a racquetball court, like within a week after hearing about racquetball. It was like in the early 70s when that all took off, and it was like all the racquetball places, all the health clubs, mania. So yeah, that's perfect. I can totally see a cool racquetball court at Graceland.
Like one of those things in movies too, like from that era.
Obligatory racquetball scene in the 70s film. So the racquetball court was there. It was a 2-story thing. On the back side of it, he had like big posts like you'd see sticking out of, if you were looking at like a movie about a bay with a bunch of boats pulling into the bay, you know how they have those big wooden posts that the pelicans are sitting on or whatever?
Like a wharf or
Right,
pier.
yeah. So he had a bunch of those lined up in a row, and then he would sit on his balcony on the back of his house and shoot guns into a target down into that thing. So an errant bullet would just stray into the racquetball court. So I don't know, it wasn't a very good plan. So that struck me. And then when you go in his house, he had a jungle room.
The jungle room, yeah.
Yeah, it was like this exotic plants and fur and weird shit.
The TV room was rad. The TV room in the basement with the 6 TVs, and at the time is like amazing if you had more than one TV. And that's the room where he like shot the TV, and they still had the shattered TV that he shot with his gun.
Yeah, the only other person who had 3 TVs was the president of the United States. You'd always see the president sitting there, and he'd watch all 3 networks because there were only 3 television networks. So yeah, 3 TV was a sign of great wealth and importance.
Well, now I just pull up 3 browser windows on my monitors and watch 3 football games all at the same time. I'm like fucking Elvis.
Yeah, you're totally like
trash.
Elvis. You've got your own little Elvis TV room going there.
We're all Elvis now.
We're all Elvis.
I was laughing at the scenes where the Elvis picture is in every hotel room, because I was recently, over the summer, I was on a road trip in Springfield, Missouri, and I was staying at some old Route 66 hotel, and they had a picture of Elvis in the motor court room because Elvis stayed there, I guess, once in like 1957, and they just advertised the heck out of it, and they actually have an Elvis room there, and it was just like Mystery Train because Elvis is staring down at you the whole time, and it has him like in his band, and it says Elvis stayed here and the date on it and what the day the concert was, and it's just a huge selling point to that motor court.
Have you guys ever seen the documentary, the 1970 whatever, the concert?
Elvis, That's the Way It Is, or something like that.
That's the way it is. I always think that was amazing. I
Awesome.
haven't seen that in several years, but when I finally saw that, I was like, oh, this is cool. Or it was just so great to watch early documentary stuff. And I just love the band rehearsing for the shows with that guitar player. What's his name? I forget his name.
I was just about to say that like the
so
thing I
great.
realized was that his guitar player was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And I was like, I used to always think country music was just like, just like people just playing the same old shit, strumming on chords and banjos and whatnot. When you start to listen to great country music players and
Whoa, I mean that's a
Yeah.
I mean, they're incredible. And that guy was particularly
Burton? Is his name
James
Burton?
Burton, yeah.
Is it James Burton? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Elvis is getting shocked by the microphone constantly. And he keeps singing. He's like touching it. He's like, getting zapped. And he's like, his guitar isn't grounded. He's got the polarity wrong. But he keeps doing. He just keeps. He soldiers on. But he's getting that. You can tell that tingling, and he's still singing. But
I love it when he can't remember his lyrics. And he's just kind of fumbling through the lyrics and just gets them wrong and just laughs it off, and all the band laughs. And he always has a handkerchief to wipe himself down. He's just sweating his ass off.
Yeah. And the creepy guy, the fan, he's not a fan, he's like the head of the fan club and is threatening, is like telling the filmmakers, you better, do this right, like basically threatening us, like show him respect in this movie. If this movie doesn't come out right, so he was this very hostile fan.
Well, that's how I was at your shows. I'd go up to the sound guy, whoever it was, and kind of give him, I'd say, you need to take a walk for about 30 seconds. And when you get back, we're going to have a conversation about how you're going to do sound tonight. Jim, you don't use a microphone. Is that why you're afraid to get shocked?
That's right. Yeah. That was terrifying, seeing the king getting shocked like that.
This movie was shot in 88, and Elvis had only been dead for 10 years. And that was kind of at the time when the whole Elvis is alive thing was really big, like all the Elvis sightings and stuff. I remember they have specials with Bill Bixby. He would host Elvis is Alive specials, and they'd be on like major television networks. The whole ghost Elvis scene in Mystery Train, it predates the kind of the ghost Elvis scene in was it True Romance? Has kind of a ghost Elvis. I guess he's more of a inner voice Elvis, but I always liked the Elvis in Mystery Train better, just because he was like, "Excuse me, ma'am," and then just disappears, and that's all he says. That's one of my favorite scenes of the movie.
Pop quiz, gentlemen. Elvis the King was dead for 10 years when they shot Mystery Train or debuted it. How many years has the King of Pop been dead?
9.
5.
10?
11. 2009.
Wow.
Crazy.
Horrifying.
Rick, you have discerning tastes. You're pretty hard on films and directors. How do you feel about Jarmusch and his catalog?
Oh, I love him. And he's actually, part of my independent film rant, which is that, when I saw Stranger Than Paradise in a theater on campus, not even in the Film Society, right? So it was a really important moment in the early 80s where independent film, black and white, everything we talked about, Jarmusch, anti-80s film, and seeing that playing in the campus cinema, but it was a commercial cinema. Whereas you used to see arty films when the cinema club or whatever had their night. Every Saturday night they'd show a film in a dorm or something like that, right? So actually seeing it in the theater and having people go see it was a really amazing, powerful moment in indie filmmaking before Clerks, right? Stranger Than Paradise was really profound. And so for me, it's just kind of an important moment where that crossed over. And then the bookend to that is, and I love Wes Anderson, but I remember sitting and watching Rushmore in a commercial theater in that same town, but the campus theater was gone by then, and thinking, wow, this is an independent film, but all this is a good film made by someone who's not famous. And it's not an action film, so therefore it's an independent film. But 25 or 30 years before, a Wes Anderson film would have been a commercial film, for grown-ups, right? And so that was when I realized that indie filmmaking was no longer this underground movement. It was kind of the place where people who could make a good narrative film that wasn't about somebody getting shot in the head. Indie film now is a farm team to commercial or Hollywood filmmaking. It's no longer this purely underground, interesting art. It's a farm team. And so that's...
Which is what happened to indie labels.
Yep.
Is they all got purchased. Sony tried to buy my label, and I turned them down. $60,000 they offered me and a job. And I think it was Rose, maybe, who had said something to me once about, yeah, we know all these people who they bought their labels for $60,000 and then they gave them a job, and 6 months later they don't have a job, they don't have their label anymore. And then, in working with Warner Brothers to license a record that I licensed a couple of years back, the guy showed me, well, here are all the labels we own, and it's just literally just logos. He's like, we just slap one of these logos on one of our releases based on which is the most appropriate. So if it's an indie record, even though we're a major record label, we slap this indie label on it. And so like Sony Pictures has their indie film division and Warner has their indie film division. And you're right, it just sort of gobbled them up. There's no such thing as indie anymore.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I remember this band that Jim and I were in that was a different band. There was an indie label that was interested in putting out a record for a very little money, complete control. I'm not talking about you, Chris. This is years ago.
It's the same story.
No, very little money. And I was like, well, no, I'm not going to sign away this record for $4,000 in perpetuity. And the representative for the guy said, well, this guy is building up a catalog. That's his business model, is he's going to build up this catalog and sell it. And so he has to have these records in perpetuity. That's a deal breaker, right? If you say, well, no, let's do this for 5 or 10 years. And it was like, no, this is the whole plan. Some people are doing it for the love of it, and then it gets semi-popular, and then it becomes a business.
Why is Mystery Train your favorite Jim Jarmusch film, Dave? Is it because it's the first that you saw, or is it truly your favorite?
It's just very nostalgic for me. It might be the first indie movie I ever saw, and it really captured me and got me on the train to watching more independent films. I remember Bravo would always show Slacker and this movie, and then they'd show this documentary about Robert Johnson, this guy going on a quest to find Robert Johnson. And those were like the 3 movies. I remember one summer, I just watched those all the time. And it was like, I can't believe there's a cable channel showing these cool movies. It's funny. It's got great acting. It kind of has really influenced my filmmaking and my photography. And it's just kind of inspired me at a really young age. It just made me laugh, too. I was like, I didn't know there could be movies like this. I mean, I was watching, mainstream stuff. And I really didn't ever seek out other Jim Jarmusch movies. I've watched them since, but this one just was always my favorite. And this is like a question you always ask on the show. I might be jumping the segment, but would you recommend this film to people? I recommend this movie to everyone I meet. So I just think it's hilarious and just very, very, very well done and enjoyable.
So you think this film should be found. So definitely not lost,
right,
and definitely found. And then I'm assuming rewound. Do you rewatch it often?
I do. And when the global event first started, I just started watching all of my old favorite movies. And I rewatched them all, like Mystery Train and Slacker. And I just kind of went back and started watching all of my old standbys. So another one of my favorite segments you do here on the show is the list part, where you guys list what you've watched. I mean, I created a list. I don't know if you're going to do that.
Yeah,
tonight,
let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get your list.
You want all the movies I've watched?
Ever in your life,
Ever?
Yeah. See if we could start from what's the first movie first answer this question. What's the first movie you've ever seen?
Oh, I didn't know. Is this the new segment?
Where we want your list, but we want you to start with the first film. What was the first film you ever saw in a movie theater ever in your life?
As a child, we'd go to the drive-in, and the first movie I remember seeing was Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, okay. And then subsequently, from the next film on till today, what were the films that you watched?
So what did you see the next week after Empire Strikes Back?
Sorry, I keep another segment. Well, something you talked about in a recent episode, best James Bond theme.
Yes, what do you got?
I'm going to throw in my 2 cents. I'm going to go with For Your Eyes Only, Sheena Easton.
Wow.
Or You Only Live Twice. Those are my 2 favorite Bond themes.
Oh, that's a great song.
Just wanted to put that in there.
What are the parameters around your list? Is it the films you've watched in the global event? Films you've watched this summer?
Films I remember watching during the global event. Okay, I watched the #1 comedy film of 2020. There haven't been very many films released this year. Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, I watched that.
Terrible. It was a terrible movie. Succession, season 1 and 2, HBO. It's a great show. I went on a Coen Brothers kick and watched Blood Simple, Raising Arizona, Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink. I watched Paper Moon.
Oh, yeah.
Which was shot in Kansas. I never knew it was shot in Kansas.
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful black and white movie.
Yeah, so
is it black and
beautiful.
white?
Yes.
It is black and white, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I get that confused with Nickelodeon, which is not good.
No. Nickelodeon
movie,
is
right.
the weird, hybrid of What's Up, Doc and Paper Moon.
And it has Burt Reynolds, but he doesn't have a mustache,
and a
right?
Burt Reynolds movie, but he doesn't have a mustache. So it's so disturbing. Oh, the movie.
Yeah,
I think
that's what I felt too.
Yeah, I obsessed about it in earlier. If you were a fan of the show, you would know that early on I obsessed about Nickelodeon in one of the early episodes, I think.
Actually, Dave was about to tell us that he hated this podcast where a guy obsessed about Nickelodeon.
That's right. Not realizing. Yeah, I heard some podcast this guy was just talking forever about Nickelodeon. What do you know? I can't
You guys talk
remember
about Ryan O'Neal a lot, and I thought Ryan O'Neal was actually pretty good in Paper Moon, but otherwise, I don't think he's a very compelling actor at all.
Oh no, he's a tabula rasa. He's a blank. He's
Yeah.
a blank. But he is really good in Paper Moon. So that's the thing. As I always start wondering, is there something there?
Just have to have another member of his family in the movie to
Right to work off.
Yeah, gosh, she was amazing in Paper Moon. I mean,
She was.
Right?
she
Isn't
won
the
an
story?
Oscar.
And the story is though that they shot a lot of film. You know,
Yeah.
it was like it took a long time.
That's
Oh, really?
Peter Bogdanovich's story. It's like I should have won the Oscar. It's like, I think Peter Bogdanovich may have actually said that.
I went on a little Zemeckis kick and I watched Used Cars, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Back to the Future trilogy, and then his newest movie, which is so bad, Welcome to Marwen.
Oh yeah, I did. I
you
I
heard
saw
about
the
this movie?
documentary, the original. That's the thing. Is that what's
Yeah, the documentary's great.
amazing? Yeah. Did he do?
It's so bad.
Did he do the airplane, the pilot movie with Denzel Washington?
Yeah,
Was that
Flight.
Zemeckis? I actually liked that movie. I was surprised that I liked that movie.
Well, again, I go back to my Ryan O'Neal point. Denzel Washington and Ryan O'Neal are both attractive. So, I mean, if people are, we've talked about this before, if people are attractive, they're good people. And I would also argue if people are attractive, they're good at what they do. So I don't know what you're talking about Ryan O'Neal being a bad actor. And Denzel Washington, everybody think he's a fantastic actor because he's fantastically attractive.
I don't think I've ever seen a Denzel Washington movie.
Theater.
Oh, you don't think he's theater worthy, cinema worthy?
Yeah, I don't know if there's ever been one that I've been like, oh man, I gotta go see this new Denzel Washington movie.
I need to think back. I saw Malcolm X in the theater. I know that.
I saw Equalizer 2. I think Scott and I went and saw Equalizer 2 in the theater.
Yeah,
And
you guys invited me to that, but I was like, I haven't seen Equalizer 1, so I'm not going.
Oh man, those are great. Those are great. He is so attractive in those films.
I did a couple movies I'd never seen. I'd never seen the original 48 Hours.
And I know that's one of your favorites, Chris.
Now we set off Chris. Wow, that took
And
how many
I-
episodes to set off Chris?
And I had never seen Pretty Woman, and it was on cable one night, and I was like, I'm just gonna watch this and see what the big hubbub is from
Yeah,
1990.
there's no reason to watch
And,
Pretty Woman.
No, that one movie was.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Wait a minute. Both of those actors are attractive in that film. You guys are really going off the
I think
rails
Richard
here.
Gere and Ryan O'Neal come from the same school of bad, no acting skills.
People say I look like Richard Gere, or I used to look like Richard Gere when he was young and when I was young.
Chris,
Julia Roberts?
if you keep going, getting grayer and you poof your hair out a little bit, you're gonna be Jarmusch.
I would love to be Jim Jarmusch. I have no chance. I don't have the human sensitivity that he has, but I would love to be him.
Gary Marshall directed Pretty Woman, right? So that's
Yeah.
that's the Gary Marshall factor. Is that Gary Marshall movies are not good. Supersedes.
I watched a really bad Netflix movie that was super depressing called I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Has anyone seen this?
I
yet?
have not, but I've heard about it.
Ooh, it is so depressing.
Yeah.
Not good during a global event.
But was it good, bad, or bad, good, or you just didn't like it?
Well, it's Charlie Kaufman.
Oh, okay. That
Right.
I forgot. Okay, I was thinking of the other one.
It's like his first movie in a while.
Yeah.
Um,
I have a Charlie Kaufman problem, which if you ever listened to the podcast, I have a Charlie Kaufman problem.
What's the Charlie Kaufman problem?
I'm suspicious. I think he's got a problem with women. His artiness hides a lot of that, but I get a strong misogynistic.
I finished season 4 of Fargo, the latest season of Fargo. Did you guys watch that?
I loved it. Did you like it?
Yeah.
I've heard people not like it. I'm in central Illinois in that weird, isolated bed and breakfast or rooming house.
when they go to Kansas, when
Yeah,
they go on the
when they actually go out.
That
That's-
episode was amazing. I
That's
love
in
that episode.
Towanda, Illinois. That
Wow,
building.
that's
You can
cool.
you can go there. You could book a room there tomorrow. and go sleep
That's awesome.
in
I was
that.
wondering where they shot that. That's
Yeah.
cool. They
Just being from Kansas City, a lot of the historical stuff, of course, is not historic. It's all made up. Nothing's accurate. Like even when they go on the Kansas road trip, a lot of those towns aren't where they say they are, and a lot of them aren't near Kansas City. Like they say they go to Liberal, Kansas, and that's not close to Liberal. That kind of stuff I have to just block out just because I'm from here and I know it's not there. But it was great. I loved it. It looks like neighborhoods that are here. I live in Kansas City, so there's a lot of neighborhoods that still look like what they shot there, and those were all shot in Chicago, right?
Yeah, almost everything was done. And I can't remember what the name of the studio is up in Chicago now, the gigantic one, and then all the street stuff, neighborhood stuff, except some of it is central Illinois. Like some of the smaller town stuff is down south.
I really liked it.
I loved it.
I thought it was a great season.
I did think, so there were 11 episodes in this season, and I thought, oh, they could have just done 10.
Right.
That's the only thing I noticed was like, oh, it feels like, yeah, you maybe didn't need to do 11. The woman from I'm Thinking About Ending It, right, is in, yeah.
She was the best part of the show. Her and the daughter of the family that owns the funeral home. I wish they would have had more scenes in the show. But yeah, the nurse character, she was great. She's the star of the season, I think.
And everyone's favorite Coppola, Jason Schwartzman.
Right.
Sofia Coppola's in the film, isn't it? That's my favorite Coppola.
Have you guys watched the new Godfather 3 recut yet? Are you going to watch it?
Want to open up the Godfather 3 can of worms again?
I wanted to watch Godfather 3, but I was busy watching Jim Jarmusch films over the course of the last. I had to get every film in before this podcast, so that's all I watched.
Tim Heidecker's stand-up special on YouTube. It's amazing. Season 5 of the Eric Andre Show on Adult Swim. And instead of finishing my list, I have some Mystery Train fun facts. You want to do some Mystery Train fun facts? Screamin' Jay Hawkins. Guess how many children he has fathered?
11.
That was my guess.
Jim?
17.
40 children.
Oh!
Wow.
All proved by DNA tests. They are all his actual children.
He put a spell on a lot of people.
That song.
The more I think about it, it just upsets me.
That's irresponsible.
It's irresponsible.
That is
There I am.
very irresponsible.
Again, that reminds me that Michael Lindsay Hogg, who did Let It Be and Rock and Roll Circus, the Rolling Stones, who's like a filmmaker, claims that he's actually Orson Welles' son.
Yeah, there's been a couple guys that claim they're Orson Welles' son.
Pop quiz,
Chris.
guys. Who was the best band in the Rock and Roll Circus?
I'm not going to allow anyone else to answer. It's The Who. There's no argument.
It's a
Dave, what's
great
your-
performance. I think that Who performance is really good.
I would
Jim?
say that's probably the best performance on film ever.
Yeah, but no, you're all wrong. It's Jethro Tull.
Oh, go to hell.
What about the John Lennon performance? You
Oh.
think that's kind of...
None of that is. So The Who's performance, first off, is astounding and is the reason why the film didn't come out for 25 years. It's
Right.
like,
Yeah, they
oh,
blew him off the stage.
Yeah. Oh, so amazing. Live. That performance is live.
At the beginning of the Ghost segment, or A Ghost, with Nicoletta Luisa, the wife, there's a casket there. She's got her husband in that coffin at the airport, and people are putting, like, Down by Law is the movie before this movie, and she's with Roberto Benigni.
And people are wondering if that is Roberto Benigni
Oh,
in that coffin.
wow.
Yeah.
And then
That
there's
makes
an
sense.
amazing shot at the airport where they time it. I don't know how they did this. There's no visual effects where they have that shot where she's walking and the plane takes off in the window. It's one of the most amazing shots because there is no way they could have timed that. That had to just be
And that's my question. So all of this,
Trick.
and with the train too, right? So all the lighting, that's what I started was, again, cinematography. I'm hyper focused on that scene with the airport, and then also just all the scenes in the train, right? And so they've lit that on film, and they shot all that, and they got that all right. I would even argue not just the timing, but just being able to get the lighting exactly right. It's like so impressive.
One of my favorite movies of all time is Kes. Kes. It's this British movie from early 1969, and it's this grim, heavy movie, but it's all filmed in Yorkshire, like North England, and there's only one real actor in it. Everybody else is just local people, even the star. It's all natural light, and it's one of the most amazing movies from a cinematography viewpoint. It's like all indoor, and there's absolutely no artificial light at all, and it just looks amazing.
I got to see that.
Chris Menges. He's the guy who did Local Hero, and he did Killing Fields.
So writing and cinematography, and probably editing too. If you have those three elements, you've got a great film. I'm with you, Rick. I think the cinematographer is more important than the director.
I wouldn't say they're more important, but they don't get enough. I
think Sharky's Machine's look
is one of the things that captivated me about that film more so than the direction or the acting, right? I mean, it was all kind of same old, but it was gritty and there was a definite style to it. And you said that it's a cinematographer, a known cinematographer. So I think there's something where cinematography could save a film that isn't very good. And in this case, you've got a great writer who knows how to direct people, whether they're actors or not. I'd argue probably better at directing people who aren't actors than actors, which, Dave, I think you do an outstanding job of. I think that's one of your strengths as a director. I remember one time Dave and I were shooting a film, and I walked up to these actors and I gave them a 5-minute diatribe about what their characters were doing, what their motivations were, where they worked. I got to give them their backstory. And then, we didn't get the scene right, and Dave walked up to the actors like, "You need to smile more." And then we got like a perfect shot. I was like, all right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stay over here and work on the special effects. I'm going to let that guy tell the actors what to do.
Yeah, does Jarmusch still use Robbie Mueller for his movies?
I believe Robbie Mueller is dead.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, he just died. It was 2 years ago, I think 2018. Yeah, I just noticed that.
I looked him up earlier, and he didn't do Wings of Desire. He did Until the End of the World. Coffee and Cigarettes, and it was only one section of that. That's the last film he did. And it looks like he stopped making film, stopped working in 2003, 2004, and then died, 2 years ago.
What did you think of Coffee and Cigarettes, Chris?
I thought Coffee and Cigarettes and Broken Flowers were kind of the dead zone in a lot of what I watched. Coffee and Cigarettes was sort of patchy, good stuff and then some sort of average stuff. And Broken Flowers, again, was just a little slow. But The Limits of Control, fantastic, beautiful movie. Only Lovers Left Alive, gorgeous film, incredible acting. I mean, Tilda Swinton and then the guy who plays Loki in those Avengers movies, who's a tremendous actor, pairing up, incredible. And then Patterson, just so beautiful, so simple. So I don't know who shot those films, but they're great. They're really beautiful.
Does this movie make you want to do more train travel?
Yeah.
I'd use the train to go from Bloomington, Illinois to Chicago quite a bit, and then also when I lived in Champaign. And so I love the train, but the train that comes through Bloomington Normal, you have to get the right one. There's one that's just like an Illinois train, like between St. Louis and Chicago, but then there's the one that comes from Texas. And so the one that comes from Texas is full of people who've been on the train for 24 hours, and they're insane. Literally insane, and the train looks like a child's bedroom, with just food and stuff strewn everywhere. And so,
like the Polar Express.
I was going to say a college dorm.
A college dorm.
Lounge.
Yeah.
It's like, haven't you guys ever been on a train before? Jesus, get a hold of yourselves.
It's terrible. But Jim and I don't know if Jim remembers. Jim would have been super young. I think I was 5. Do you remember taking a train trip to Texas?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that was one of the great experiences of my childhood was taking the train. But I look it up
we had
now.
sleeping cars.
Yeah, sleeping cars. You look that up, and for like a family of 4 now, it's like prohibitively expensive compared to just cramming yourself into an airplane for $200 each or whatever, right? It's like the train. It's just like, it'd be a great experience, but really, do I want to spend half of my or all of my vacation budget on the train?
It's funny when I watched Stranger Than Paradise, it reminded me of a weekend where Jim and our friend Matt and I all just got in a car and drove to Springfield, Illinois for the weekend and literally had a Jarmusch-like weekend with Friday night was a completely bizarre, surreal story. Oh, that's, remember the titty story, Dave? That's where the titty story is from.
Okay.
It's from the Friday night, and then Saturday night was a completely different, it was just like we talk about segments or scenarios of how Jarmusch breaks up things. Saturday night was a whole different cast of characters and a completely different scenario, and just totally bizarre and wonderful. But anyway, Stranger Than Paradise sort of evoked that memory.
One of the best parts of Mystery Train is after they shoot the guy in the liquor store, and they just drive
Rocket's Red Glare.
Rocket's Red Glare, yeah.
Okay.
And they just they just drive around Memphis drinking that Butcher's in the truck, and it goes on for a little while, and it's just them aimlessly driving around at night on the street, and it just kind of brings up, memories of like when you're driving around with friends at night looking for something to do. Of course, not after you've just shot a guy at a liquor store, but it's I love that part of the movie. I really love that part of the movie when they're just kind of driving around town.
Jarmusch does bullet holes really well. All the gunshots in Dead Man and all the gunshots in Ghost Dog, and I forgot that there was gunshots in Mystery Train, but they're all like really horrific. They're jarring. Just the way the blood sort of bubbles up and sort of pours out of them.
Yeah, Dead Man. Wow, that one has a lot of graphic. Oh, and Ghost Dog.
Yeah, a lot of people get shot.
Yeah.
I had it in my mind that once I heard the first gunshot, or the first time in the first scene, I was like, oh, crap, that's right. Steve Buscemi dies in this movie. And I was like, oh, no, he doesn't. Of course not. It's a Jim Jarmusch movie.
Yeah, it's a funny gunshot to the leg.
Yeah.
And it's to a funny character, so it's a funny scene.
And it says everything about, I've been conditioned, and it's like, oh, yeah, somebody will die. And it's not true, right? It's like, yeah, it's well, somebody did die. I guess maybe the clerk, did the convenience store clerk die?
No,
he didn't die either. No, he lived.
Tom Waits
says.
Guy
that movie.
The police at the in the morning, it's like he's taken to the hospital and they're looking for 3 people. So.
The scene too, where the Italian lady is the weirdo, the Tom Noonan, kind of comes up to her and talks to her at the restaurant. That part, when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh no, what's this guy gonna do to this lady?" It really freaked me out. And then nothing happens with it. It's just it was scary there for a minute. It's like, "Oh no!" And then she walks out into the street, and they like confront her in the street, and she gets away. But yeah, nothing too bad happens there, which is really refreshing and different from other movies.
Tom Noonan is like being typecast, or what he thought was like, right, he's in Manhunter, he's the serial killer, right? So and then this,
you see how tall he really is in that scene, man. He is a tall, skinny guy. That was so creepy. He plays a really good creep in this movie.
He's probably really into it, it's like, oh cool, I'm in this Jim Jarmusch movie and stuff, but still it was just, he's such a creep, and the other guy's even more of a creep, and and the amazing costume, whoever their clothing, they're like the wild and crazy guys,
right.
like
those
Steve Martin,
silk
but
shirts.
They're just like the dark, wild and crazy guys. Their shirts are wide open and they're just amazing. But it was 1989, and I was thinking back, it's like, I guess there were still people maybe dressed like that, but I don't know. It was just so extreme.
For sure, yeah.
When I was watching Permanent Vacation, there was an actor in that film leaning against the wall in a hallway, I think maybe in a police station or somewhere, Frankie Faison, who was in a ton of things. Like I think it was like 250 credits on IMDb, and he's still working today. He also was in an episode of The Equalizer, and he possibly may be the only actor to be in all 4 Hannibal Lecter films. So the 3 new ones and Manhunter. He was in all 4 of those movies.
Rick was saying earlier about Stranger Than Paradise, seeing that for the first time, and it was really a big deal. It was like I was in high school, and the only place that showed it was downtown. So I could get on a train and go downtown and go to the Fine Arts, and that's where I saw Stranger Than Paradise. And it was
so. As a sophomore in high school, you had the presence of mind to take a train to downtown Chicago and see Stranger Than Paradise, the second Jim Jarmusch film.
Yeah, well, it was the first to me. It's really the first. I'd never heard
Permanent
of it.
Vacation was not well known.
It's like his student film or something.
But then how did you, so that's even more amazing. How did you even know to go see it? Did you read a review or something?
It was a big deal.
A buzz. There was a buzz about it. Yeah.
Yeah, art film. It was just kind of like it was the cool new movie, and it was different, and it was already aware of that kind of stuff, I guess.
Were you listening to Sonic Youth at that point?
Maybe. Probably not. It was 1984.
I started listening to Sonic. I'm assuming you started listening to Sonic Youth before me. I started listening to Sonic Youth in 1986 when I bought Sister 87 when I bought Sister on CD. It was actually the first indie record I ever purchased. That and Up on the Sun.
I saw them live at the Metro in '86. So it was like the Evil tour.
Jim liked them more than I did. I had Bad Moon Rising. I remember when it came out, and I didn't like it that much. But Jim went to see them and said, "Oh, they're really good." And so it took me a while to warm up to them.
They are really good. You should check them out.
Yeah, if anybody hasn't heard Scenic Youth, you should check it out.
I just watched a documentary on AMC about movie palaces. Did you watch that?
No.
It's really good. It talks about a lot of the old movie palaces in Chicago and how they're trying to save them. And
like the Uptown?
Uptown, yeah, that's the one. That's beautiful. And I guess
it's all falling apart or just so much water damage.
That's the one they're trying to save because the entryway to that place, it looks like it really does look like a castle or a palace in there.
It's amazing.
But yeah, it was cool. It talked about a lot of the ones in LA and Chicago and how they're trying to save the old movie palaces. But I found another Mystery Train fun fact I forgot to read. There was rumors that there was supposed to be a trilogy of movies. So it was going to be New Orleans, Memphis, and then the third movie was supposed to be Kansas City. So New Orleans was Down by Law, Memphis was Mystery Train, and then he was supposed to make a Kansas City movie, and he says, probably I'm not going to make that. So he's not going to finish the trilogy, which kind of sucks because I guess in an interview he said, I've heard Kansas City's got some cool music, but he's like, I don't have a movie written for that. So how are you guys holding up in 2020 without seeing movies in theaters? Because obviously you guys are frequent moviegoers, and I'm really missing the movie-going experience this year for sure.
I bought a 4K TV last week. That's how I'm holding up.
And Jim just goes.
I have this suit, the special space suit kind of
You've
thing.
seen Sonic the Hedgehog 70 times.
My son and I went to see Tenet when it came out. That was the first time I went out to a public place, took a chance. So that was the thing, is like I'm pretty strict about going out and going places and everything like that. But then somehow I convinced myself it was a good idea to go to a movie theater in the middle of this and go see Tenet.
How was it? Was it worth it? Was it a good movie?
Yeah. No, it's worth it to watch a movie like that on a big screen. IMAX.
I snuck out and saw Bill and Ted Face the Music. That was the one movie I saw during the global event.
So I have a hard time in my house getting completely lost in a movie. There's something about the enforced, isolation of being in a theater, right, and focus that really is special, and I'm worried that that's going to go away. I love watching stuff at home, but I do realize that there's an extra layer of life, real world there that prevents me from getting completely lost in a film.
Dave, is there anything you'd like to plug before we go? Do you even want to mention your real name? Because we haven't done that yet either.
Oh, yeah. My name's W. David Keith. I have a podcast called Taco the Town, where I review taco places in Kansas City and beyond.
Okay, so it's Taco the Town, not Taco the Town. It's Taco the Town.
Right.
So it's more like Paint the Town? Taco the Town?
Taco, TTT, T3, Taco the Town.
Not Taco the Town.
Right.
Taco the Town.
Right. Yep.
Is it Taco the Town or is it Taco the Town?
It's Taco the Town.
Oh, I thought it was Taco the Town.
You did?
Yeah.
No, that's a bar. That's like a bar down the street.
I'm not saying Talk of the Town. I'm saying I thought it was Taco the Town, not Taco the Town.
You got it right the second time. You nailed it. And you're the executive producer of the show, and you just figured out how to say the show's name.
You know what's amazing is that ever since I've stopped being involved with the show, I continue to be the executive producer. It's the greatest executive producer position
I know. I should
ever hold.
I should be really PO'd at you guys. This podcast stole away my executive producer away from my show.
I'm still writing music for
Lost
your
and
show.
Found and Rewound stole my executive producer. This is what you've been doing, Chris, since you've not been on the show. This is where you've gone.
Isn't that the story of the guy? Is it Sam Simon who did the original Simpsons stuff, but then was not involved for most of the run of the show, but just made millions of dollars hand over fist.
Yeah, and his
right?
name's still on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what Chris is getting. He's still getting the millions that we get from the show. But he doesn't get to eat the tacos anymore, so
Yeah, I'll be back. We're planning it'll be a great return. It'll be a triumphant return to the show when I come back. But this thing kind of got out of hand. This show, I had no idea I thought the show was going to be 12 episodes, 12 months, and just 12 great reasons to hang out with these two guys in their childhood home eating Lito's Pizza. Delicious Lito's Pizza out of the countryside. And if you're feeling you're trapped at home and you're feeling hungry, don't worry about maybe giving into that urge and getting yourself a Lito's Pizza. They're fantastic. Just look them up in the book or order, I think it's Lito's Pizza.
They're in the yellow pages, right?
They're in the yellow pages.
Yeah, congrats on the sponsor. That's huge. That's a huge sponsor.
Is he?
Do you guys get to eat pizza? I guess you don't get to eat pizza together anymore.
For the main episodes, we do.
Okay.
Every main episode we've had.
Which took place in the past. So you were eating pizza in the past.
Well, and the future. There's still 4 more to go.
What's really great is that the sponsor is giving us all this money and they don't care that 2 hours and 20 minutes into the episode, the sponsorship happens. Usually sponsors want it at the top of the show. They don't mind. 2 hours, 20 minutes, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's what everybody knows who listens to the show, where that's the sweet spot. That's what everybody's waiting for. It's like
that's when the diehards are listening.
Yeah. It gets good in the last 5 minutes.
Lost and Found and Rewound is fully funded by Lost and Found and Rewound Foundation funds. Lost and Found and Rewound does not use crowdfunding because our listeners have better things to do with their funding. There's no need to post reviews of Lost and Found and Rewound because our listeners have more valuable things to do with their time. In all sincerity, thank you for listening to the show. We truly appreciate it.
Lotus Pod.